The gentle tick-tock of a dozen different timepieces was the heartbeat of Ilara Vance's world. It was a soothing, rhythmic symphony that played from dawn until long after dusk in her shop. The timeless tick, nestled on the cobbled main street of Seagrove Bay. The air inside was a comforting blend of antique wood polish, faint metallic tangs, and the lingering scent of the Earl Grey tea Ilara always kept brewing. Dust motes danced in the slivers of morning sun that found their way through the tall arched windows, illuminating the intricate gears and polished brass of her beloved collection. Ilara herself was a creature of quiet habits, as precise and delicate as the mechanisms she devoted her life to mending. Her fingers, slim and dexterous, moved with a balletic grace as she worked, often adorned with a smudge of grease or a faint residue of polishing paste. Her dark brown hair, usually braided into a practical crown, had a tendency to escape in soft tendrils around her face, framing eyes the color of warm honey, perpetually crinkling at the corners from countless hours spent peering through a jeweler's loupe. Her current project lay on a velvet cloth, bathed in the focused glow of her workbench lamp, an antique pocket watch, no bigger than a ripe plum, yet impossibly intricate. It was known locally as the Whispering Watch, a legendary piece said to have belonged to Captain Alistair Finch, a reclusive inventor and sailor who had vanished from Seagrove Bay over a century ago. The watch was an enigma, its silver casing tarnished with the patina of ages, its crystal face clouded, but within, Ilara could already discern the delicate dance of its tiny gears, waiting to be coaxed back to life. It had been brought to her by Mrs. Gable, the town's oldest resident and a distant descendant of Captain Finch, who insisted Ilara was the only one with the patience and skill to tackle it. The legend, whispered from generation to generation over cups of tea in Seagrove Bay, claimed that if you whispered a wish into the watch's gears at the stroke of midnight, and the watch was perfectly repaired and running true, the wish would come to pass. Ilara, a woman of science and meticulous craft, considered it charming folklore, a sweet story to accompany such a beautiful object. But even she had to admit there was something undeniably magical about the watch itself, a subtle hum of forgotten stories emanating from its cold metal heart. She picked up her smallest screwdriver, its tip finer than a sewing needle, and carefully began to remove the back plate. The click of the tiny screws as they gave way was a familiar, satisfying sound. Beneath, the movement revealed itself, a miniature universe of brass wheels, ruby jewels, and hairsprings, all frozen in time. It wasn't merely broken. It felt like it had been holding its breath for a very, very long time. Outside, Seagrove Bay was beginning to stir. The scent of fresh-baked bread wafted from Mrs. Henderson's bakery across the street, mingling with the salty tang of the sea carried on the morning breeze. The distant cry of gulls and the faint clang of a buoy bell were the only other sounds, besides Ilara's symphony of ticks and tocks. It was a town that moved at its own unhurried pace, much like the slow, deliberate sweep of the minute hand on an old grandfather clock. And Ilara, in her quiet way, was perfectly content with that rhythm. Her life was built on routine and the satisfaction of bringing forgotten beauty back to life. She loved the challenge of a stubborn mechanism, the quiet triumph of hearing a long silent chime ring true again. She had chosen Seagrove Bay specifically for its gentle pace, its sense of community, and the abundance of forgotten treasures tucked away in attics and dusty corners. After a rather tumultuous period in her early 20s, marked by a whirlwind romance that had ended as abruptly as it began, she had found solace in the steady, predictable nature of her work and the unwavering loyalty of inanimate objects. Hearts, she had learned, could be fickle. Gears with proper care were dependable. A small bell above the shop door jingled, pulling Ilara from her focused trance. She looked up, blinking as her eyes adjusted from the magnified world of gears to the sun-drenched interior of her shop. Standing just inside, framed by the bright morning light, was a man. He was tall, with a lean build that suggested a life lived outdoors. His hair, the color of rich earth, was slightly disheveled, as if he'd just run his fingers through it, and his eyes, a startling shade of blue, held a glint of genuine curiosity. He carried a worn leather satchel slung across his chest, and clutched a leather-bound journal in one hand, its pages visibly dog-eared. There was a faint scent of pine and something subtly wild about him, a contrast to the polished stillness of Ilara's shop. "Good morning," he said, his voice a low, warm murmur, like a river stone smoothed by currents. He had a slight, almost imperceptible lilt to his accent, not quite local. Is this the timeless tick? Alara managed a soft smile, pushing a stray tendril of hair behind her ear. It is. How can I help you? He took a step further in, his gaze sweeping over the array of clocks and watches. He lingered for a moment on a particularly ornate cuckoo clock, then on a delicate carriage clock, before his eyes settled on Alara still holding her tiny screwdriver. My name is Finian O'Connell, he said, extending a hand. His grip was firm but gentle. Though most people call me Finn, I'm new to Seagrove Bay, just for a spell. Alara Vance, she replied, shaking his hand. Her fingers, despite their usual precision, felt a little clumsy against his. Welcome to Seagrove Bay, Finn. What brings you to our quiet corner of the world? Maps, he said, a smile crinkling the corners of his blue eyes. And stories. I'm a cartographer of sorts. I specialize in historical maps, local legends, forgotten trails. Seagrove Bay has quite the reputation for both, I hear. He gestured vaguely towards the wall, where a faded hand-drawn map of the local coastline hung, annotated with whimsical sketches of sea monsters and hidden coves. Alara's interest was piqued. Indeed it does. We have tales of mermaids, pirate treasure, and even a ghost or two in the old lighthouse. She glanced down at the open whispering watch, a new thought sparking. And inventors who vanished, leaving behind mysterious objects. Finn's eyes sharpened, a flicker of professional curiosity. Oh, tell me more. It's a long story, Alara said, gesturing vaguely at the workbench. But I am currently working on a piece connected to one of those legends, Captain Alistair Finch and his Whispering Watch. Finn's eyebrows shot up. The Whispering Watch, I've only read about that in old seafaring logs. It's real? I thought it was just a fanciful detail to embellish the captain's disappearance. He stepped closer to the workbench, his gaze fixed on the delicate mechanism. May I? He asked, gesturing to the watch. Of course, Alara said, stepping back slightly to give him space. She watched as he leaned in, his expression one of reverence. He didn't touch it, but his eyes devoured every tiny detail, tracing the lines of the gears, the gleam of the jewels. It's even more beautiful than described, he murmured, almost to himself. They say Finch was a genius, far ahead of his time. His maps were said to contain hidden clues, secret symbols, only he understood. That doesn't surprise me, Alara said. The mechanism itself is remarkably complex for its age. I've seen some intricate pieces, but this one, it feels like it holds a secret even in its silence. She paused, then, on an impulse, she added, the legend says if you whisper a wish into it at midnight, once it's fully repaired, it comes true. Finn chuckled, a low, pleasant sound. A hopeful legend, and fitting for a town named Seagrove Bay. Wishes and the sea often go hand in hand. He straightened up, his gaze meeting hers. So, you're the one who can bring it back to life. That's a considerable task. I'm certainly going to try, Alara said, a familiar determination settling over her. It's a challenge I'm looking forward to. I imagine so, Finn replied, his eyes still lingering on the watch. I've been researching Captain Finch quite a bit since I arrived. His maps, his inventions, his disappearance is one of the great local mysteries. I'm trying to chart his last known movements, to understand what might have led him to disappear without a trace. Perhaps even find a hidden cove or a forgotten waypoint. So, you're a detective of sorts then, with a compass instead of a magnifying glass? Alara teased gently. Finn smiled, a genuine open smile that reached his eyes. Something like that. And sometimes the clues are not on paper but in the objects people leave behind, like this watch. He turned back to the array of clocks on the walls, moving slowly, his fingers occasionally brushing against a polished brass pendulum or the smooth wood of an antique mantel clock. This shop, he said, his voice thoughtful. It feels like a collection of moments, every tick a second saved, every chime a memory preserved. Alara felt a warmth spread through her. It wasn't often that someone understood the deeper appeal of her work, beyond mere repair. That's exactly what it feels like to me, she confessed. I'm not just fixing mechanisms, I'm restoring stories. And what story do you hope to restore with Captain Finch's watch? Finn asked, turning back to her. His gaze was steady, curious, as if he were trying to read the unwritten chapters of her own life. Alara hesitated. a flicker of something she couldn't quite name crossing her face. I suppose I hope to restore its purpose, whatever that might be, and perhaps to understand a little more about the man who made it. Finn nodded slowly. A worthy pursuit. I understand completely. I'm trying to do the same with his maps. They're more than just lines on paper. They're a window into his mind, his world. He paused, then pulled a small, rolled-up parchment from his satchel. Speaking of which, I found this in the archives of the Historical Society yesterday. It's a fragment of what appears to be one of Finch's navigational charts. But there are symbols here I can't quite decipher. Perhaps you, with your eye for intricate detail, might see something I'm missing? He carefully unrolled the parchment. It was old, brittle at the edges, and covered in a fine, elegant script. Alongside the expected lines of longitude and latitude were small, almost imperceptible drawings. A miniature compass rose with an extra, almost invisible needle, tiny constellations that didn't quite match any known star charts, and a series of dots that seemed to form a pattern within the ocean currents. Elara leaned closer, her professional eye immediately drawn to the minute details. These dots, they almost look like musical notes, don't they? She mused, tracing a finger over a particularly delicate cluster. Or a sequence, like a code. Finn's eyes widened. Musical notes? I hadn't even considered that. I was so focused on their spatial arrangement. Finch was known to be a patron of the arts, but I never heard he was a musician. Sometimes, the greatest clues are hidden in plain sight, disguised as something else entirely, Elara said, remembering the countless times she'd found a crucial, almost invisible flaw in a clock's movement only by looking at it from an entirely new angle. She pointed to a tiny, almost imperceptible swirl on the map, near what would have been the edge of Seagrove Bay. And this symbol here, it reminds me of a specific gear I've seen in some very old clock designs. Not a common one, but one used in extremely precise, almost experimental timepieces. Finn's gaze sharpened, a spark of excitement in his blue eyes. A gear? You're right. It's like a tiny cogwheel. I just saw it as a decorative flourish before. This is incredible, Elara. You have a way of seeing things, don't you? Elara felt a flush creep up her neck. She wasn't used to such enthusiastic praise, especially from a stranger, but it was undeniably pleasant. I suppose years of staring at tiny parts makes you notice the small things, she said, downplaying her skill. It's more than that, Finn insisted, his voice earnest. It's a connection. You're seeing the world through Finch's eyes, through his craft. This changes everything for my research. If these are musical notes, and this is a specific gear, it suggests a whole new layer to his cartography. Maybe his maps aren't just about navigation, but about time, or even sound. He carefully re-rolled the parchment. I don't want to take up any more of your time, especially with something so delicate as the Whispering Watch waiting. But I wonder, Elara, if you'd be willing to consult on some of these fragments with me. Your insights are invaluable. Elara felt a pleasant flutter in her chest. It was a novel idea, collaborating with someone on a historical mystery, especially someone as warm and engaging as Finn. Her world, while fulfilling, was largely solitary. I'd like that very much, Finn, she said, a genuine smile gracing her lips. I can't promise any grand revelations, but I'd be happy to offer my perspective. Excellent, he said, his smile mirroring hers. Perhaps later this week. I'm staying at the Old Mariner's Rest Inn just down the street. Maybe we could meet for coffee or something stronger if you prefer, and delve into these mysteries. Coffee would be lovely, Elara agreed. I'm usually here until 6, but I can make time. Perfect. I'll come by tomorrow around 4, if that works for you. We can discuss the map fragment then. He paused at the door, his hand on the brass handle. Thank you, Elara, for your time, and for seeing what I couldn't. With another warm smile, Finn stepped out, and the bell above the door jingled softly, a final musical punctuation to their meeting. Elara stood by her workbench for a moment, the quiet returning to her shop, but it felt different now. The tick-tock of the clock seemed to resonate with a new energy, a faint echo of Finn's presence. She looked down at the Whispering Watch, its gears still silent, but now imbued with an even greater sense of mystery and potential. Musical notes on a map, a specific gear as a symbol. The possibilities were suddenly endless. She picked up her loupe, ready to dive back into the intricate world of Captain Finch's timepiece, but her mind kept drifting to Finn's blue eyes, his easy smile, and the shared thrill of discovery. Her solitary, predictable world had just gained a new, intriguing dimension, and she realized, with a quiet certainty, that she was very much looking forward to what secrets the Whispering Watch and perhaps Finn O'Connell might yet reveal. The gentle rhythm of her life in Seagrove Bay had just acquired a new, subtle beat, a quiet hum that promised something more than just the steady passage of time. And for the first time in a very long time, Elara felt a whisper of something akin to anticipation, stirring deep within her. Elara's fingers, still tingling from the brief brush with his, hovered over the smooth, cool surface of the counter long after Finn had departed. The soft chime of the shop door closing behind him seemed to echo in the sudden quiet, a sound both definitive and lingering. She stood there for a moment, listening to the gentle lapping of waves against the distant shore, a sound that had always been the steadfast soundtrack to her life in Seagrove Bay, but which now seemed to carry a new, almost melodic quality. Her gaze drifted back to the small velvet pouch, where the Whispering Watch rested. It wasn't just a watch anymore. It was a promise, a question mark, a silent invitation. Finn O'Connell had left more than just an antique in her care. He had left a piece of his own intriguing mystery, wrapped in a layer of charming wit and a smile that had somehow warmed the entire shop. With a soft sigh, a mixture of contentment and a nascent excitement she hadn't felt in years, Elara picked up the pouch. The velvet felt rich and soft beneath her fingertips, a luxurious contrast to the worn wood of her counter. She carried it carefully to her small organized desk in the back, a space usually reserved for cataloging, research, and the quiet contemplation of forgotten histories. This felt different. This felt like a beginning. She untied the drawstrings, her movements deliberate, almost reverent. The watch gleamed, catching the soft afternoon light that filtered through the leaded glass window. Its silver casing, intricately engraved, seemed to whisper tales of bygone eras, of hands that had held it, moments it had witnessed. Elara ran a thumb over its cool surface, tracing the delicate floral patterns and the tiny, almost imperceptible inscription she'd spotted earlier. Tempus fugit, carpe diem. Time flies, seize the day. A fitting motto for a watch, perhaps, but coming from Finn, it felt like a personal challenge, a gentle nudge. She wound it carefully, listening for the familiar click and whir of gears, but there was only a soft, almost imperceptible hum. No distinct tick-tock, just that quiet thrum, like a faraway heartbeat. She held it to her ear, tilting her head. Nothing. Or was it something? A faint, almost imperceptible resonance that seemed to vibrate not just in her ear, but deep within her chest. She shook her head, a soft smile playing on her lips. It was just an old watch. A beautiful, peculiar, intriguing old watch. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of small tasks and persistent thoughts of Finn. She rearranged a shelf of antique teacups, dusted a collection of maritime maps, and even polished the brass bell above the door, her mind constantly returning to his easy laugh, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners, the sheer unexpectedness of him. She wondered where he had come from, what brought him to Seagrove Bay, and why he had chosen her shop, her. Later, as the sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in hues of peach and rose, Elara locked up Elara's curios and keepsakes. The salty air, usually a comfort, now felt charged with a subtle anticipation. Instead of heading straight to her cozy cottage, she found herself walking towards the pier, the velvet pouch clutched in her hand. The rhythmic crash of waves against the distant shore seemed to call to her, a siren song of the sea. She sat on an old weathered bench, the kind that had seen countless sunsets and heard countless confessions, and watched the gulls wheel overhead. The watch felt heavy and significant in her palm. The inscription, A Tempus Fugit, Carpe Diem, resonated with her in a way it hadn't before. She had built a quiet, steady life here, surrounded by the echoes of the past, but she realized now, with a surprising clarity, that she had perhaps been letting time fly without truly seizing the day. Her days had been pleasant, comforting, but perhaps a little too predictable. A sudden, gentle ring broke the quiet. Elara started, fumbling for her phone. It was an unknown number. Her heart gave a little lurch. Could it be? Hello? She answered, her voice a little breathy. Elara, it's Finn O'Connell. I hope I'm not disturbing you. His voice, warm and laced with that same charming cadence, sent a shiver down her spine. Finn, not at all. I was just enjoying the sunset. She realized he was still clutching the watch. Ah, the Seagrove Bay sunsets are legendary, aren't they? I'm calling about the watch. The whispering watch? I hope it's behaving itself. There was a hint of amusement in his tone. Elara chuckled. It's enigmatic. It doesn't tick, but it certainly seems to hum a quiet tune all its own. She paused. I also noticed the inscription. Ega tempus fugit, carpe diem . Ah, you found it. A family motto of sorts, passed down through generations with the watch. My great-grandfather was quite the philosopher, apparently. He chuckled softly. Listen, I was wondering if you might be free tomorrow afternoon. I'm still in town, staying at the Mariners Rest Inn, and I was hoping to continue our conversation about the watch, perhaps over a cup of tea, or something stronger if you prefer. Or something stronger if you prefer? Elara's mind raced. A tea with Finn. It wasn't a date, not really. It was about the watch. But it felt like more. I'd like that very much, Finn. Tea would be lovely. Wonderful. How about the Seagull's Nest Cafe around 3 o'clock? I hear they do a mean scone. They do, Elara confirmed, a genuine smile spreading across her face. I'll see you then. Looking forward to it, Elara. As she hung up, the last sliver of sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery oranges and deep purples. A tea with Finn. The anticipation, which had been a mere whisper earlier, now resonated with a gentle hum, much like the watch itself. The next day, Elara found herself fussing over her appearance more than usual. She chose a dress in a soft seafoam green, a color that complemented her eyes, and tied her auburn hair back with a simple ribbon. She even applied a touch of rose-tinted lip balm, something she usually reserved for special occasions. It wasn't a special occasion, she decided. A chance to unravel a little more of the watch's mystery, and perhaps a little more of Finn's. She arrived at the Seagull's Nest a few minutes early, the whispering watch tucked safely in her handbag. The cafe was bustling with the usual lunchtime crowd, the comforting aroma of fresh coffee and warm pastries filling the air. She spotted Finn almost immediately, seated at a window table overlooking the bay. He was wearing a casual linen shirt, sleeves rolled up, revealing strong forearms, and a pair of dark trousers. He looked relaxed, yet utterly captivating. His eyes, the color of a stormy sea, lit up when he saw her. Elara, right on time as I expected. He rose, pulling out a chair for her. You look lovely. A blush warmed Elara's cheeks. Thank you, Finn. You too. She sat, feeling a pleasant flutter in her stomach. I've already ordered a pot of their famous Earl Grey and some scones. I hope that's all right? Perfect, she assured him. Their scones are truly legendary. As the tea arrived, steaming fragrantly, and a plate of warm, buttery scones with jam and clotted cream was placed between them, the conversation flowed easily. They talked about Seagrove Bay, its quirky residents, the rhythm of life by the sea. Finn revealed that he was a freelance photographer, traveling often, capturing the essence of forgotten towns and hidden landscapes. He spoke of the beauty of solitude, but also the unexpected joy of connection. So, what brought you to Seagrove Bay, Finn? Elara finally asked, emboldened by the warmth of the tea and his engaging presence. He took a sip of his tea, his gaze drifting out to the sparkling water. A project, mostly. I'm working on a series about coastal towns that time forgot, or at least slowed down for. Seagrove Bay seemed to fit the bill perfectly. But then, I found the watch. He smiled, a hint of something deeper in his eyes. And then I found your shop. Elara felt a gentle squeeze in her chest. And the watch, where did you find it? It belonged to my great-grandfather, as I mentioned. It was passed down through the family, but somewhere along the line, it got misplaced. Lost, really. I've been on a bit of a quest to retrieve some of these family heirlooms. This one was particularly tricky to track down. It turned up in a rather dusty antique market 3 towns over. The moment I saw it, I knew it was the one. He paused, looking at her intently. And I knew it needed a special touch, a particular kind of understanding. That's why I brought it to you. A special touch? She queried, a little surprised. Yes, you have a way with old things, Elara. You don't just see their monetary value. You see their stories, their souls, almost. I could tell that from the moment I walked into your shop. You have that rare gift of empathy for the past." His words were sincere, making her feel seen in a way she rarely was. Ilara felt a warmth spread through her, a blush that wasn't entirely from the hot tea. "That's very kind of you to say, Finn. I suppose I do feel a connection to the objects I curate. They have so much to tell us." She reached into her bag, carefully extracting the velvet pouch. "Speaking of stories, the watch still holds its secrets close." She placed it gently on the table between them. Finn picked it up, his long fingers carefully turning it over. "It always has. My great-grandfather used to say it had a mind of its own, that it only revealed its true purpose to those who listened carefully, not just with their ears, but with their hearts." "A beautiful sentiment," Ilara murmured, watching his profile as he examined the watch. The way his brow furrowed slightly in concentration, the gentle curve of his lips. She found herself captivated not just by the watch, but by him. He also claimed it had a knack for showing people what they needed. Not necessarily what they wanted, Finn added, a thoughtful expression on his face. A sort of quiet guide. "And have you ever experienced that?" Ilara asked, her voice soft. Finn looked up, his gaze meeting hers. A flicker of something profound passed between them. "Perhaps. It led me here, didn't it?" Ilara's breath caught. His words hung in the air, weighted with a delicate significance. It was a simple statement, yet it resonated deeply within her, a silent acknowledgement of the unexpected connection blossoming between them. She felt a warmth spread through her chest, a feeling akin to the first rays of morning sun after a long, cool night. They spent the next hour in comfortable conversation, delving into the intricacies of the watch's mechanism, sharing theories about its whispering quality, and even speculating on what secrets it might hold. Finn spoke of old family legends, tales of serendipitous encounters and timely discoveries, all somehow linked to the watch. Ilara found herself sharing anecdotes about particularly challenging antiques she'd restored, and the joy of uncovering a forgotten history. It was easy, natural, as if they had known each other for years. As the afternoon wore on, and the cafe began to empty, Finn leaned forward slightly. "Ilara, I have an idea, a way to perhaps unlock a little more of the watch's mystery. And perhaps get to know Seagrove Bay a little better from a different perspective." Ilara's curiosity was piqued. "Oh, tomorrow is the annual Seagrove Bay Tide Pool Festival, isn't it? My innkeeper mentioned it, a local tradition, full of quirky stalls, local crafts, and of course, the tide pools themselves at low tide. I was wondering if you might be willing to be my guide. We could take the watch with us, see if it responds to the energy of the town." And he added, his eyes twinkling, "I'd genuinely love to experience it with someone who knows and loves this place as much as you do." The Tide Pool Festival was indeed a beloved local event, a vibrant celebration of the town's coastal charm. Ilara usually attended, but always alone, observing the joyful chaos from a slight distance. The thought of experiencing it with Finn, with the watch as their shared quest, filled her with a thrilling sense of adventure. "I'd love to, Finn," she said, her smile bright and genuine. "It's one of my favorite days of the year." "Excellent!" He beamed, and the warmth of his smile seemed to chase away any lingering shadows. "Then it's a date, to uncover the secrets of the Whispering Watch, and perhaps the magic of Seagrove Bay." As they parted ways outside the cafe, the setting sun casting long shadows, Ilara felt a lightness in her step she hadn't experienced in years. The quiet hum of anticipation had grown into a gentle melody, a promise of shared discovery and unexpected joy. She hugged the velvet pouch to her chest as she walked home, the watch within feeling less like an antique and more like a key. The next morning dawned bright and clear, a perfect day for the festival. Ilara dressed in comfortable walking shoes and a breezy linen dress, her heart thrumming with a quiet excitement. She made sure the Whispering Watch was nestled securely in her pocket, its cool weight a constant reminder of the day's unique purpose. The festival grounds, set up along the stretch of beach near the old lighthouse, were already buzzing with activity when Ilara arrived. Colorful banners fluttered in the sea breeze, the scent of salt water mixed with roasting corn and sweet pastries, and the air was filled with the lively strains of a local folk band. She spotted Finn near the entrance, leaning against a weathered wooden fence, his gaze scanning the crowd. He wore a simple t-shirt that accentuated his broad shoulders, and a smile that seemed to light up the morning. "Ilara, you made it," he greeted, his voice warm. "This is quite the spectacle. It truly is, she agreed, feeling a renewed sense of pride in her little town. It's a celebration of everything that makes Seagrove Bay unique. Then I have the best guide imaginable, he said, offering her his arm. She took it, a pleasant warmth spreading through her as their skin brushed. They began their exploration, wandering through the bustling stalls. Finn, with his photographer's eye, noticed every detail. The intricate patterns on handmade pottery, the vibrant hues of sea glass jewelry, the weathered faces of the local fishermen selling their catch. Alara found herself seeing her familiar town through his fresh perspective, noticing the small, charming nuances she had perhaps overlooked in her daily routine. They sampled local honey, laughed at the antics of a performing poodle, and admired the delicate artistry of a woman weaving fishing nets into intricate wall hangings. All the while, the watch rested in Alara's pocket. A silent companion. "Any whispers from our mysterious friend yet?" Finn asked, as they paused at a stall selling antique nautical instruments. Alara took out the watch, cradling it in her palm. "Nothing distinct, just that same quiet hum. It feels alive, though. More so here, amidst all this life." Finn nodded, his eyes fixed on the watch, then on her. Perhaps it's absorbing the energy, or waiting for the right moment. As they continued their stroll, they found themselves drawn towards the tide pools, now exposed by the retreating tide. Children, armed with buckets and nets, squealed with delight as they discovered tiny crabs and colorful anemones. The air was filled with their joyful shouts and the gentle rhythm of the waves. "This is my favorite part," Alara confessed, her voice soft with affection. "The tide pools are like miniature worlds, full of hidden wonders. You have to look closely, patiently, to truly appreciate them." Finn watched her, a thoughtful expression on his face. "I imagine that's how you approach everything, Alara, with patience and a keen eye for hidden beauty." His words again held a deeper resonance. She felt a blush creep up her neck, but this time, it was accompanied by a feeling of profound understanding. He saw her, truly saw her. They navigated the slippery rocks, their hands instinctively reaching for each other for balance. The touch was light, fleeting, yet profoundly grounding. Alara pointed out a vibrant purple sea star, a cluster of iridescent mussels, and a tiny, almost translucent shrimp darting amongst the seaweed. Finn, camera in hand, captured the ephemeral beauty of these miniature ecosystems, his lens focusing not just on the creatures, but on the wonder in Alara's eyes. As they reached a particularly secluded pool, sheltered by a cluster of rocks, Alara paused. The air here felt different, quieter, imbued with a sense of ancient stillness. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the whispering watch. "It feels stronger here," she murmured, holding it out. Finn took it from her, his fingers brushing hers, sending a familiar spark through her. He held the watch above the shimmering water of the tide pool, sunlight glinting off its silver casing. Suddenly, a faint, almost imperceptible tremor ran through the watch. Alara gasped. "Did you feel that?" she asked, her eyes wide. Finn nodded, a look of awe on his face. "Yes, it's resonating, look." As he spoke, the surface of the tide pool beneath the watch began to ripple, not from the wind, but from an unseen force emanating from the watch itself. The small, colorful pebbles at the bottom of the pool seemed to shift, and a faint, silvery light, barely visible, pulsed from the watch and reflected in the water. Then, a sound. Not a tick-tock, but a delicate, almost ethereal melody, like the tinkling of tiny bells, so soft it was almost imagined. It wasn't just in their ears. It felt as though it vibrated through their very bones, a gentle, comforting hum that resonated with the ancient rhythms of the sea. Alara felt a wave of profound emotion wash over her. It wasn't fear, but a sense of wonder and connection to something vast and old. She looked at Finn and saw the same awe reflected in his eyes. "It's singing," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the gentle melody. "And it's showing us something," Finn replied, his voice equally hushed. As the melody swelled slightly, the rippling in the tide pool intensified, and the light from the watch seemed to illuminate a particular spot on the sandy bottom. There, half buried beneath a small cluster of seaweed, something glinted. Carefully, Finn reached into the cool water. His fingers closed around a small, smooth object. When he drew his hand out, he held a perfectly preserved, iridescent abalone shell, unlike any Alara had ever seen. It shimmered with all the colors of the rainbow, its surface polished to a jewel-like sheen. "It's beautiful," Alara breathed, taking it from him. It felt warm in her palm, despite having just come from the cool water. "It's a gift," Finn said, his gaze fixed on her. "From the watch, or perhaps from the sea itself." He then looked down at the watch in his hand. The subtle melody had faded, the rippling in the water subsided. The watch was once again silent, still, yet somehow more profound. They stood there for a long moment, the abalone shell a vibrant testament to the watch's mysterious power, the gentle sea breeze rustling their hair. The shared experience, the raw wonder of it, had created an unspoken bond between them, a silent understanding that transcended words. "My great-grandfather, he used to say the watch had a way of guiding you to what you needed," Finn said, breaking the silence, his voice thoughtful. "Perhaps it wasn't just about finding the shell, but about—" Alara's heart fluttered. She looked at the abalone shell in her hand, then at Finn. His eyes held a depth she found herself wanting to explore, a warmth that promised comfort and connection. "I think you might be right, Finn," she murmured, a soft smile gracing her lips. "I think it led us to something truly special." They spent the rest of the afternoon at the festival, but the magic of the tide pool lingered. The abalone shell, now carefully wrapped in a handkerchief, became a precious shared secret. As the sun began to dip towards the horizon, painting the sky in fiery oranges and soft purples, they found themselves walking along the now quieter beach. The gentle rhythm of the waves a soothing counterpoint to their easy conversation. "Thank you for today, Finn," Alara said, stopping to watch a lone sailboat glide across the shimmering water. "It was extraordinary." "The pleasure was all mine, Alara," he replied, his gaze lingering on her. "I haven't felt such a sense of wonder in a long time. It's refreshing." He paused, then continued, his voice softer. "You have a way of making the ordinary feel extraordinary, Alara. And you see the magic in things others might miss." Her cheeks flushed, but this time she met his gaze directly. "And you, Finn, have a way of opening my eyes to new possibilities, of reminding me that there's more to life than the familiar comfort of routine." He smiled, a genuine, heartwarming smile that reached his eyes. "Perhaps we bring out the best in each other then, or at least help each other see a little more clearly." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the whispering watch. "It seems our friend has done its job for today." "What do you think it meant?" Alara asked, gesturing to the abalone shell she now held. "The shell? The song?" Finn shrugged lightly. "My great-grandfather believed the watch would sometimes reveal tokens of truth, small, beautiful things that spoke to a deeper need or a forgotten memory. Perhaps this shell is a reminder of the beauty that lies beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered. Or," he added, his voice dropping to a low, intimate tone, "perhaps it's simply a beautiful gift to a beautiful soul." Alara's heart did a little flip. She looked down at the iridescent shell, then back at Finn, a silent question in her eyes. The air between them hummed with unspoken words, with a growing awareness of the magnetic pull that had been steadily drawing them closer. "I should probably head back," she said, though a part of her wished the day could stretch on indefinitely. "I have some new treasures to catalog from the festival." "Of course," Finn replied, though he didn't move. "Alara," he began, his voice hesitant. "I'm not sure how long I'll be in Seagrove Bay. My work often takes me to new places. But I would very much like to continue our quest for the watch's secrets, and perhaps explore a few more of Seagrove Bay's wonders with you." "I'd like that very much, Finn," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Very much indeed." He smiled, a look of profound relief and joy on his face. "Excellent. Then I'll call you tomorrow. Perhaps we can explore the old lighthouse. I hear it has some rather spectacular views and a few legends of its own." "I'd love that," Alara confirmed, her eyes shining. As they finally bid each other goodnight, Alara walked home beneath a sky dusted with the first stars, the abalone shell warm in her hand, the whispering watch tucked safely in her pocket. The melody she had heard at the tide pool still echoed faintly in her mind, a sweet, clear note of possibility. Her life in Seagrove Bay, once a gentle, predictable rhythm, had now found a new, vibrant tempo. The anticipation was no longer a whisper. It was a symphony, playing just for her, and perhaps for Finn O'Connell too. She was no longer just looking forward. She was actively stepping into a future that felt bright, mysterious, and utterly exhilarating. And for the first time in a very long time, Elara felt truly, wonderfully alive, ready to seize every moment that lay ahead. The symphony of anticipation swelled into a tangible, melodic reality. Their first date, if one could call it that, unfolded naturally, effortlessly. Finn appeared at her gallery door late that afternoon, not with flowers, but with a thermos of steaming spiced cider and a worn copy of a book of Irish poetry. "Thought we might need a little warmth," he'd said, his eyes crinkling at the corners as he gestured towards the crisp autumn air outside. "And a little beauty, the tide's going out, perfect for a long walk." Elara's heart fluttered like a trapped bird, then settled into a contented rhythm. It was perfect. They walked along the shoreline, the golden hour light painting the sky in hues of apricot and rose. Finn, surprisingly, was a wealth of local knowledge, pointing out ancient rock formations, sharing tales of old fishing families, and even identifying the specific calls of various seabirds. Elara, in turn, found herself opening up about her journey to Seagrove Bay, the quiet solace she found in painting the ocean's ever-changing moods, and the deep satisfaction of creating something beautiful with her hands. They spoke of childhoods, Finn's, spent on the rugged west coast of Ireland, filled with sea salt and stories, Elara's, in a bustling city, finding refuge in books and art supplies. They shared dreams, Elara's, to one day hold a larger exhibition, Finn's, to build something truly meaningful, perhaps even here in Seagrove Bay, though he was vague on details. As twilight deepened, they found a driftwood log and sat, sipping the cider, the warmth spreading through them. Finn began to read from the poetry book, his voice a low, resonant rumble, each word imbued with a quiet power. It was a poem by Seamus Heaney, about a place, a memory, a feeling of belonging. Elara listened, mesmerized, the words weaving a spell around them, intertwining with the sound of the waves. When he finished, a comfortable silence settled, broken only by the distant cry of a gull. Elara felt a profound sense of peace, a feeling of being utterly seen and understood. She turned to him, her gaze meeting his in the fading light. His eyes, the color of a stormy sea, held a kindness, a depth that pulled her in. "Thank you, Finn," she whispered, her voice a little hoarse. "That was beautiful." He simply smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile that sent a tremor through her. "The pleasure was all mine, Elara." Over the next few weeks, their connection deepened with each shared moment. Mornings often began with Finn arriving at her gallery with coffee and a freshly baked scone from the local bakery, ready to discuss the day's light and how it might inspire her art. Afternoons might find them exploring hidden coves, Finn sketching architectural ideas in a small notebook, while Elara captured the play of light on canvas. Evenings were spent cooking simple meals together in her cozy cottage kitchen, the aroma of herbs and spices mingling with the scent of salt air. Elara learned that Finn had been an architect in Dublin, a successful one by the sound of it, though he rarely spoke of that life with any enthusiasm. He'd mentioned a demanding career, long hours, and a growing sense of emptiness that eventually led him to leave it all behind and sail away, seeking something undefined. Seagrove Bay, it seemed, had offered him a mooring. She sensed a quiet sadness in his past, a guardedness around certain topics, but she didn't push. She trusted he would share when he was ready. Finn, in turn, was fascinated by her artistic process. He'd watch her paint, his gaze intense and thoughtful, offering observations that revealed a keen eye for composition and color. He saw the stories in her brushstrokes, the emotions in her palettes. He encouraged her to expand her horizons, suggesting new techniques, even helping her prepare a small online portfolio of her work, something she'd always put off. One blustery Saturday, they found themselves sheltering from a sudden downpour in the small, charming Seagrove Bay Library. Surrounded by the comforting scent of old books, Finn confessed his secret passion, restoring old wooden boats. He spoke of the intricate craftsmanship, the history held within the timbers, the satisfaction of bringing something beautiful back to life. He'd bought a derelict fishing vessel shortly after arriving in Seagrove Bay, tucked away in a remote boathouse, and was slowly, meticulously working on it. "It's a project," he'd said, a rare note of genuine excitement in his voice. "A slow, patient one. Nothing like the rush of city life, thank goodness." Elara's heart warmed. It was another layer of him, another piece of the puzzle. "I'd love to see it sometime," she'd offered, and his pleased smile was her reward. Their conversations flowed effortlessly, from the profound to the utterly trivial. They debated the merits of different teas, shared embarrassing childhood anecdotes, and discovered a mutual love for classic films. Elara found herself laughing more freely than she had in years, a deep, joyful sound that echoed through her cottage. Finn, too, seemed to shed some of his quiet reserve, his humor dry and quick-witted, his eyes sparkling with amusement. She noticed the small things, the way he always made sure she had the warmer side of the bed when he stayed over, the way his hand would instinctively reach for hers during a walk, the quiet hum he'd make when deep in thought. These small gestures wove themselves into the fabric of her days, making her feel cherished, seen, and utterly adored. One evening, after a particularly delicious meal cooked by Finn, he was surprisingly adept in the kitchen, they sat by the crackling fire, the only light in the room. He took her hand, tracing the lines on her palm with his thumb. "Elara," he began, his voice a soft murmur. "I haven't felt like this in, I don't know how long. Alive, content, hopeful." She squeezed his hand, her gaze fixed on the dancing flames. "Me too, Finn. You've brought a light into my life I didn't know was missing." He turned to her then, his eyes searching hers. "I want to tell you more about my past, Elara. It's complicated, and I want to be honest with you." A flicker of apprehension ran through her, but it was quickly overshadowed by trust. "I'm here, Finn. Whenever you're ready." He took a deep breath. "I was a partner in a very successful architectural firm in Dublin. We designed high-rise buildings, grand public spaces, cutting-edge structures. It was exhilarating, demanding, ultimately hollow. My brother, Liam, he was also an architect, a brilliant one, but more grounded, more focused on sustainable community-driven projects. We were very close." He paused, his grip on her hand tightening slightly. 3 years ago, Liam was diagnosed with a rare, aggressive illness. It was sudden, devastating. I threw myself into work, thinking I could outrun the grief, outrun the fear. I pushed him away and away, too busy with my own important projects. He died 6 months later. Elara felt a pang of deep sympathy. She reached out with her other hand, gently stroking his cheek. "Oh, Finn, I'm so sorry." His eyes were filled with a profound sorrow. "After he was gone, the life I'd built, it felt meaningless. Every building I designed felt like a monument to my own ambition, my own neglect. I sold my share of the firm, packed a bag, bought a sailboat, and just left. Sailed until I found a place that felt quiet enough to heal. That place was Seagrove Bay. That place was Seagrove Bay." "You've been carrying so much," Elara murmured, pulling him closer, resting her head on his shoulder. He wrapped his arm around her, holding her tight. "I didn't want to burden you, but you deserve to know. And I've been afraid. Afraid of letting anyone close again. Afraid of losing someone I care about so deeply." "I understand," she whispered. "But you're not alone anymore, Finn. We can carry it together." In that moment, a new layer of their connection was forged, deeper and more resilient than before. It wasn't just about shared laughter and easy companionship. It was about shared vulnerability, about understanding the wounds that shaped them, and about the quiet promise of healing together. Their relationship continued to flourish, anchored by this new foundation of trust and shared history. Finn started spending more time at the boathouse, inviting Elara to join him. She loved watching him work, his hands sure and skilled as he sanded old wood, replaced corroded fittings, and patiently brought the old fishing vessel, which he'd christened the Liam, back to life. It was a beautiful meditative process, a testament to his quiet strength and his ability to pour his heart into something meaningful. Elara, inspired by his dedication, found a renewed vigor in her own art. She began a series of paintings capturing the various stages of the Liam's restoration, seeing in its transformation a metaphor for Finn's own journey. Her gallery began to attract more attention, her unique perspective on the sea and its stories resonating with visitors. Life in Seagrove Bay settled into a comfortable, joyful rhythm. They were becoming a fixture, Finn and Elara, strolling hand in hand along the beach, sharing knowing glances across the bustling marketplace, their laughter echoing from her cottage. Then the quiet calm was gently disturbed. One Tuesday morning, a sleek, expensive car, utterly out of place, pulled up outside Finn's rented cottage. A woman emerged, impeccably dressed in a sharp business suit, her auburn hair pulled back in a severe bun. She looked like she belonged on the cover of a high-fashion magazine, not on a quiet lane in Seagrove Bay. Elara, who happened to be walking past on her way to the bakery, saw the interaction from a distance. The woman spoke animatedly, gesturing towards the car, then towards Finn's cottage. Finn, arms crossed, listened with a polite but unyielding expression. After a tense 10 minutes, the woman, looking frustrated, got back into her car and drove off, leaving a faint scent of expensive perfume in her wake. When Elara saw Finn later that day, he looked troubled. He was at the gallery, ostensibly looking at her latest seascape, but his gaze was distant. "Everything all right, Finn?" she asked gently, placing a hand on his arm. He sighed, running a hand through his already disheveled hair. "That was Fiona, my former business partner in Dublin." A knot tightened in Elara's stomach. She seemed insistent. "She was," he confirmed, his jaw tightening. "There's a new project, a massive waterfront development in Cork. They've been trying to get me back for months. Apparently, this is the one they think I can't refuse. A chance to design something truly groundbreaking, a legacy project." Elara's heart sank. A legacy project. The words hung heavy in the air, a stark contrast to the quiet, fulfilling life they were building here. She remembered his earlier confession, his feeling of emptiness in that high-pressure world. But this sounded different. Groundbreaking. A legacy. Could he truly turn that down? "What did you tell her?" she asked, trying to keep her voice even. He turned to her, his eyes serious. "I told her no, that my life is here now, but she's persistent. She said she'd be back, that I owed it to myself, to my talent, to consider it properly. She even mentioned Liam, saying he would have wanted me to continue building, to honor his vision. To honor his vision." The mention of Liam struck a raw nerve. Elara saw the flicker of doubt in Finn's eyes, the subtle pull of his past. He loved his brother fiercely. Could this be a way for him to reconcile his grief with his talent, a way to honor Liam's memory in a grand, public way? Over the next few days, Finn became more withdrawn. He spent long hours at the boathouse, sanding and varnishing with a fierce intensity, as if trying to sand away his internal turmoil. Their easy conversations became punctuated by stretches of silence, filled with unspoken questions and anxieties. Elara tried to be understanding, but a quiet fear began to gnaw at her. What if Seagrove Bay wasn't enough? What if the allure of his old life, the prestige, the challenge, was too strong to resist? She loved him fiercely, but she couldn't ask him to sacrifice his true calling, whatever that might be. Yet, the thought of him leaving, of their beautiful, burgeoning future dissolving, was unbearable. One evening, after a particularly strained dinner, Elara decided she couldn't let the unspoken linger any longer. "Finn," she began, her voice soft but firm. "We need to talk about this project, about Fiona." He looked up from his plate, his eyes shadowed. "There is nothing to talk about, Elara. I told her no." "But aren't you truly at peace with that decision?" she pressed gently. "She brought up Liam, and I know how much his memory means to you. Is there a part of you that feels this could be a way to honor him?" He pushed his plate away, standing up and walking to the window, staring out at the darkening sea. "It's complicated, Elara. Liam and we had different philosophies. He believed in building sustainably, integrating with the environment, creating spaces for people, not just monuments to corporations. This Cork project, it's massive, yes, but it's also designed with a strong emphasis on community, on green spaces, on preserving the natural waterfront. It's almost as if it's the kind of project Liam would have championed." "What's that?" Elara walked over to him, placing a hand on his back. "And you, Finn? Do you champion it? Or is it the ghost of your past trying to pull you back into a life that made you unhappy?" He turned, his expression pained. "I don't know, Elara. That's the honest truth. A part of me feels a responsibility to use my skills, to create something significant. To not let Liam's vision or my own go to waste. But another part, the part that found peace here, with you, with the quiet rhythm of the bay, that part just wants to finish the Liam and sail into the sunset." He looked at her, his eyes full of anguish. "I don't want to lose you, Elara, but I also don't want to live with regret, wondering what I could have built, what impact I could have made." Her heart ached for him. This wasn't just about a job. It was about identity, grief, and purpose. "You won't lose me, Finn," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Whatever you decide, I'll be here, but you have to decide for yourself, not for Fiona, not for Liam's ghost, but for Finn. What truly makes you happy? Where does your heart feel most at home? Where does your heart feel most at home?" He pulled her into a tight embrace, burying his face in her hair. "You are my home, Elara. You've become my compass." But even as he spoke the words, she felt the tremor of his uncertainty, the internal battle raging within him. The question remained, a silent, powerful force between them. Could the quiet solace of Seagrove Bay and the love they shared truly compete with the grand, echoing call of a legacy? The next few days were a blur of intense thought for Finn. He walked the beaches, stared out at the sea, and spent hours in the boathouse, not working, but simply sitting, wrestling with his dilemma. Elara gave him space, but her own anxiety mounted with each passing hour. She painted, trying to channel her turbulent emotions onto canvas, but even the familiar comfort of her studio felt tinged with unease. Then, Fiona returned. This time, she didn't just appear. She arranged a meeting, not in Finn's cottage, but at the quaint Seagrove Bay Cafe. A deliberate choice, perhaps, to make it feel less like an ambush and more like a professional discussion. Finn asked Elara to come with him. "I want you there," he'd said, his hand gripping hers tightly. "I need you there." Elara's presence made a difference. Fiona, though still formidable, seemed to temper her usual aggressive pitch. She laid out the plans for the Cork waterfront project, a truly ambitious vision, blending modern architecture with ecological sustainability, creating a vibrant hub that would revitalize the city's historic docks. She spoke of the cutting-edge design, the potential for international recognition, the significant impact it would have on thousands of lives. She even presented a detailed financial offer, one that would secure Finn's future for generations. As Fiona spoke, Elara watched Finn closely. She saw the spark in his eyes as he studied the blueprints, the analytical gleam that came alive when discussing structural integrity and innovative materials. She saw the quiet reverence when Fiona mentioned incorporating Liam's specific ideas for public green spaces and renewable energy solutions. It was undeniably a project that resonated with his deepest professional values, a chance to truly honor his brother's legacy in a way that his old corporate designs never could. But then, Fiona pushed too hard. "This isn't just about the architecture, Finn," she said, her voice softening. "A calculated move. It's about your legacy. It's about fulfilling your potential. Liam would have wanted you to take this. He would have been incredibly proud." Elara saw Finn flinch. His jaw tightened. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, then opened them, and the pain and conflict were starkly visible. "Fiona," he said, his voice quiet, "I appreciate the offer, and I acknowledge the vision. It's truly remarkable." He paused, taking a deep breath. "But you're using Liam's memory as leverage, and that's not fair. Liam believed in building from the heart for the community, yes, but he also believed in finding peace, in living a life that nourished the soul." He turned his gaze to Elara, and a wave of warmth washed over her. "I came to Seagrove Bay to heal, to rebuild myself piece by painful piece. This town, this quiet life, Elara, they have given me more than any grand building ever could." Fiona's expression hardened. "So, you're just going to bury your talent in a fishing village? Let your skills atrophy?" "My skills aren't atrophying, Fiona," Finn countered, his voice gaining strength. "I'm restoring an old fishing boat with my own hands, learning a different kind of craftsmanship. I'm helping local businesses think about sustainable design. I'm finding new ways to create, new ways to contribute here. And I'm building a life, a real life, with a woman I love." He reached for Elara's hand, lacing their fingers together, his grip firm and reassuring. Elara's heart swelled, tears pricking at her eyes. He had chosen. He had chosen Mims. Fiona, clearly defeated, gathered her papers. "Finn, think about this. The offer stands for another week. Don't make a mistake you'll regret." With a final dismissive glance at Elara, she exited the cafe. A heavy silence descended after she left. Finn turned to Elara, his eyes searching hers, a vulnerability she hadn't seen before. "I meant every word, Elara. You are my home. my compass. But I also saw the potential in that project. The part of me that was an architect, that part still exists, and it's hard to ignore. He released her hand, running both hands through his hair in agitation. I don't want to leave Seagrove Bay. I don't want to leave you, but I also feel a pull to create on a larger scale, to use the gifts Liam and I shared. How do I reconcile that with the peace I found here? How do I honor him without falling back into the trap of my old life? Ilara understood. It wasn't about choosing between her and the project. It was about Finn finding his true path, one that integrated all parts of himself. Finn, she said, her voice gentle, your passion for design, your vision, that's a part of who you are. It's a beautiful part. You don't have to choose between that and finding peace, or between that and me. There has to be a way to integrate them. She took his hands again, looking directly into his troubled eyes. What if Seagrove Bay isn't just a place to escape one something, but a place to build as something new? What if you could use your incredible talent, your vision, your passion for sustainable design, right here, not just for the big grand projects, but for the community that has given you so much? A flicker of an idea ignited in his eyes. Here, in Seagrove Bay? Yes, she affirmed, her voice filled with conviction. Think about it. The old dock buildings that need revitalizing. The community center that needs a modern, energy-efficient upgrade. The potential for truly beautiful, sustainable, thoughtful architecture that enhances this place, rather than overshadows it. It might not be a legacy project in the eyes of the world, but it would be a legacy for Seagrove Bay. And for you, a legacy of heart and purpose. He stared at her, then slowly, a small smile began to form on his lips, growing into a broader, more hopeful expression. Ilara, you're brilliant. That's exactly what Liam would have wanted, and what I want. The tension in his shoulders seemed to ease, a heavy weight lifting. I've been so focused on the either-or, the big city or the quiet escape. I never considered the possibility of creating a new path, right here, blending both worlds. He pulled her into a fierce hug, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you, Ilara. Thank you for seeing me, truly seeing me, for showing me a way forward. In that moment, their love deepened beyond romantic affection. It became a partnership, a shared vision, a mutual understanding that transcended words. Ilara wasn't just his love. She was his anchor, his muse, his quiet strength. And he, in turn, was her inspiration, her confidant, her safe harbor. The week passed, and Fiona's deadline came and went without a word from Finn. He had made his choice, not by rejecting his past outright, but by reimagining his future. He spent the next few days in a flurry of activity, not with blueprints for Cork, but with sketches for Seagrove Bay. He approached the local council, offering his expertise on the dilapidated old fishing pier, presenting ideas for its revitalization, proposing a sustainable design that would not only restore its structural integrity, but also create a vibrant public space for residents and tourists alike. The council, initially skeptical of the quiet, reclusive architect, was quickly won over by his passion, his meticulous plans, and his genuine commitment to the town. Word spread, and soon, other local businesses and community groups were approaching him, eager to tap into his vision. One sunny afternoon, Finn arrived at Ilara's gallery, a mischievous glint in his eyes. He held a small, beautifully carved wooden box. Ilara, he began, his voice warm. I think it's time to complete a different kind of project. He opened the box. Inside, nestled on a bed of velvet, was not a traditional engagement ring, but a unique, handcrafted silver ring, intricately designed to resemble a wave cresting, with a small, luminous piece of sea glass at its center. I know you love the sea, he said, his voice a little shaky, and I love that you found me here, by the sea. This isn't just a ring, Ilara. It's a promise to build a life with you here by the ocean, wherever our shared adventures may take us. A promise to always find our way back to each other like the tide. Will you build that life with me? Will you marry me? Tears streamed down Ilara's face, a mixture of joy and overwhelming love. The ring was perfect, more perfect than any diamond could ever be, a symbol of their unique connection to Seagrove Bay and to each other. Yes, Finn, she choked out, her voice thick with emotion. 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, as if it had always been meant to be there. He pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a tenderness and passion that spoke volumes of his devotion. Their engagement was celebrated quietly within the close-knit community of Seagrove Bay. The news spread like wildfire, bringing smiles and well wishes from everyone. Elara's art flourished, infused with the newfound joy and certainty in her life. She began a new series, Seagrove Bay Legacies, depicting the revitalization projects Finn was undertaking, seeing in them the beauty of purposeful creation and the enduring spirit of their home. Finn, too, found a deep satisfaction in his work. He established a small, independent architectural studio in Seagrove Bay, focusing on sustainable, community-driven projects. He was no longer chasing grand titles or international fame, but building something far more meaningful. A life and a legacy rooted in love, purpose, and the quiet beauty of a place he now called home. He even integrated his love for boats, designing innovative marine structures and working with local craftsmen. Their wedding day was a reflection of their love, simple, intimate, and deeply meaningful. They exchanged vows on the beach at sunset, the salty air carrying their promises on the breeze. Elara wore a dress the color of sea foam, and Finn, a linen suit that matched the sand. The entire community of Seagrove Bay gathered, their faces lit by the golden light of the setting sun, witnessing the union of two souls who had found their way home to each other. Years passed, and the symphony of their life together grew richer, more harmonious. Elara's gallery, Ocean Canvas, became a beloved landmark in Seagrove Bay, attracting art lovers from far and wide. Her paintings, always imbued with emotion, now pulsed with a vibrant, joyful energy, reflecting the deep contentment she found in her marriage and her home. Finn's architectural studio, Coastal Designs, was thriving, his reputation for thoughtful, sustainable building attracting clients who valued integrity and beauty over mere grandeur. He built homes that felt like they belonged to the landscape, community spaces that fostered connection, and even designed a new eco-friendly marina that became a point of pride for Seagrove Bay. Their cottage, once Elara's quiet sanctuary, was now a bustling, happy home, filled with the scent of fresh paint, the aroma of Finn's cooking, and the lively chatter of friends and family. The Liam was fully restored, a graceful, seaworthy vessel that they often sailed together, exploring the hidden nooks and crannies of the coastline, sharing quiet moments under the vast, starry sky. It was a tangible reminder of Finn's journey, a testament to healing and new beginnings. They welcomed a daughter, a bright-eyed girl with Elara's artistic flair and Finn's thoughtful curiosity, whom they named Maeve, meaning she who intoxicates or goddess of the sea. Maeve grew up with the sand between her toes and the sea in her soul, just like her parents. She often accompanied Elara to the gallery, sketching her own versions of the waves, or joined Finn at his studio, fascinated by the models and blueprints, her imagination already taking flight. Life in Seagrove Bay continued its gentle, predictable rhythm, but now, for Elara and Finn, it was interwoven with a vibrant, exhilarating tempo that never faded. They still found joy in the small things, morning coffees overlooking the ocean, evening walks hand in hand, the comfortable silence that spoke volumes. They had built not just a house but a home, not just a relationship but a partnership, not just a life, but a legacy of love, purpose, and profound connection. Elara would often sit on the porch of their cottage, watching the waves roll in, a contented smile on her face. Finn would join her, his arms settling around her shoulders, and they would simply be together. The anticipation that had once been a whisper had long since blossomed into a full, resonant symphony. It was a symphony of love, of home, of a future that had unfolded more beautifully than she could have ever imagined. And in the quiet embrace of Seagrove Bay, Elara knew, with every beat of her wonderfully alive heart, that she had truly seized every moment and found her forever with Finn, her lighthouse in the storm, her calm in the bay, her endless horizon.